What happens when a Boston police officer is found dead outside of another officer's home in Canton, Massachusetts? Hi, I'm Mackenzie. I break down high-profile cases using verified facts and court testimonies so you can be informed before you argue about it at your next family dinner. On the night of January 28, 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe and his girlfriend, Karen Reed, were out drinking in Canton, Massachusetts. They were out with a group that included other members of law enforcement and friends. Among those in the broader circle included Brian Albert, a Boston police officer whose home they would later go to, as well as another friends connected to that group. Witness testimony included that both John and Karen had been drinking. Some witnesses described tension between them that evening, and there were reports that Karen appeared upset at some times. However, accounts differ on whether there was ever a serious argument. Prosecutors suggest that there was tension in the relationship that night. The defense disputes this and says that there were normal relationship disagreements and it was totally exaggerated. After leaving the bar shortly after midnight, the group of friends planned to continue the night at Brian Albert's home on Fairview Road in Canton. Karen Reed drove John O'Keefe there in her Lexus SUV. What happened next is the core dispute in this case. Prosecutors allege that Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle while making a three-point turn, causing blunt force trauma injuries. They allege she then left him outside in the snow during a winter storm. The Commonwealth has argued that damage to the right rear tail light of her SUV is consistent with striking him. The defense tells a completely different story. They argue that John was not hit by Karen's vehicle. Instead, they suggest he went inside the Fairview Road home and was involved in some kind of altercation and then placed outside. Karen Reed has stated that she remained outside the house waiting for confirmation that they were welcome to come in. According to statements attributed to her, she said she did not want to just walk in and was waiting for a signal or a text. Phone data confirmed she was outside the residence for a period of time before leaving. Prosecutors argue she became impatient and drove away. The defense disputes the interpretation of her departure and timeline. The next morning, according to testimony, Karen Reed woke up and realized John O'Keefe had not returned home. She reportedly began calling and texting him. Eventually, she and others went looking for him. In the early morning hours of January 29th, John O'Keefe was found unresponsive in the snow, taken to the hospital, and later pronounced dead. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as blunt force trauma and hypothermia. From there, the case becomes heavily focused on forensic evidence and alleged mishandling. The tail light evidence has become one of the most debated aspects of the case. Prosecutors argue that pieces of Karen Reed's broken tail light were recovered near John O'Keefe's body, and that this supports their theory that he was struck by her vehicle. The defense argues that the evidence collection process was deeply flawed. They have pointed to the fact that initial searches did not immediately recover large amounts of taillight debris and that additional fragments were located during later searches. They have raised questions about how the scene was secured, how evidence was logged, and whether proper chain of custody procedures were followed. The defense suggests the possibility of contamination or even planting of evidence, although no court has ruled that evidence was planted. There have also been questions about how Karen Reed's vehicle was handled in police custody, including when damage was documented and how it was photographed. Another major controversy involves a Google search found on a phone belonging to someone inside the Fairview Road home. The search phrase was similar to "how long to die in the cold." The timing of that search is heavily disputed. Defense experts argue the search occurred earlier than initially reported, which they say raises serious questions. Prosecutors counter that forensic analysis shows the search occurred later and dispute the defense's interpretation. Competing digital forensic experts have testified on both sides. There has also been some discussion about injuries to John O'Keefe's arm. The defense has suggested that marks could be consistent with a dog bite, referencing a dog that lived at the Fairview Road home. Prosecutors maintain that injuries are consistent with impact and environmental exposure and do not support a dog attack theory. The official manner of death was not ruled a dog mauling. The defense has further pointed to the later replacement of flooring in the basement of the Fairview Road home, suggesting it raises questions. There has been no official finding connecting the renovation to O'Keefe's death, and prosecutors have not alleged the fatal injuries occurred inside the house. Phone data, SIM card information, and cell tower records have all been examined during proceedings. The defense has questioned movements of certain devices and raised the possibility of inconsistencies in digital timelines. Prosecutors reject claims of a coordinated cover-up and maintain the evidence supports their theory of a vehicle strike. Karen Read was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, motor vehicle manslaughter while intoxicated, and leaving the scene of a collision causing death. She has pleaded not guilty. She was initially held in custody and later released on bail pending trial. At its core, this case presents two sharply different narratives, one in which a fatal vehicle strike occurred during a late-night argument, and another in which the defendant was wrongly accused and evidence was mishandled or misinterpreted. As of now, the final legal determination has not been made. Those are the facts as presented in court, and on both sides, you form the opinion. That's the Karen Read case, and this is Mackenzie Knows. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear some more perspective and what you think really happened. Were there mishandlings and misdealings because all of the police officers are working on the same crime that was committed outside of their house? What is going on? And if there's cases that have had a lot of media coverage that you don't know what to believe, let me know. I'll spend a few days fact checking and I'll get back to you. Thanks for hanging out with me.